Greetings, Culture Warriors. It is I, Jeff Vieira, the author of Culture is Everything, and your host for this latest dispatch from the front. Story today from Breitbart News. Tearful salon owner says Mrs. Pelosi owes the entire country an apology. Salon owner Erica Cuse told a Zoom press conference on Thursday that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, California, was lying to say she was set up and that she should apologize to America and to small business owners and workers struggling to survive. Pelosi was caught on surveillance camera attending Cayuse's salon earlier this week for a private hair appointment indoors with a stylist, Jonathan DiNardo. San Francisco and Alameda counties are still not allowing salons to reopen indoors due to growing coronavirus restrictions. Isn't it interesting how the restrictions grow as the disease ebbs? Pelosi was criticized for breaking rules her party created and failing to lead by example. A spokesperson for the Speaker said she did not know that she was breaking the rules and blamed the salon for the violation. On Wednesday, Pelosi doubled down, telling reporters she fell for a setup and that the salon owner should apologize to her. The Pelosi camp energetically pushed the idea that Cayuse had acted out of political motives, circulating a letter from an attorney for DiNardo that accused Cayuse of operating her salon at other times during the shutdown and of making vitriolic and incendiary comments about Pelosi. Pelosi's daughter, Christine, posted the letter on Twitter with the hashtag #setup. On Thursday, Cayuse responded. She denied that there has been any setup, saying that Pelosi's assertion that she was a victim and was set up was totally false and outrageous. She said that she had lost 6 months of income due to the coronavirus shutdowns, but had allowed stylists to make appointments if they needed money. Choking back tears, Cayuse added, for the Speaker of the House of the United States to go on TV and falsely claim she was set up and publicly defame me and send out PR firms to spin more lies is bad enough. But for Speaker Pelosi to frame herself as a victim under a total false narrative while small businesses and workers all over California, the state she represents in Congress, suffer and struggle just to survive is beyond shameful. I don't owe anyone an apology. Mrs. Pelosi owns the entire country an apology. If a woman in a high-risk age group who spends much of her time on TV warning about the dangers of COVID-19 feels safe and comfortable in a San Francisco salon and can be responsible for being cautious and mindful, why can't the rest of San Francisco and the rest of America do that too? She said that Pelosi was showing by her actions that the draconian rules were unnecessary for her safety. Yeah, that's the real problem, isn't it? You know, you have these people, these would-be aristocrats, these would-be lords over all of us, benighted Americans, out there telling us day by day how our lives have to shrink in order to prevent the spread of this virus. No matter that they're saying the exact opposite thing they said just a short time before, we're not supposed to notice that. We're supposed to obey whatever they say. We're not supposed to ask Pelosi, how is it that you have a $25,000 gourmet ice cream freezer that you showed off on television while so many people have lost their jobs and are having to sell their treasured belongings to try to make a rent or mortgage payment? We're not supposed to do that. Why are we supposed to simply follow orders when we see politicians like Pelosi getting rid of their masks and not socially distancing the second they think the cameras are off them? How is it that we are supposed to look our employees in the eye and tell them, no, you cannot come back to work, you cannot feed your family because Mrs. Pelosi says so, and yet she comes in to be tended to like the royalty she thinks she is, in violation of those very same rules. And when she's caught, claims she was set up. Let me ask you this. How exactly do you get set up to have your hair done indoors when you know it's against the law for you to get your hair done indoors? It's your bloody law, right? How does that work exactly? Perhaps Pelosi just had a senior moment similar to the many, many, many senior moments the nominee of her party for president has, and just plain forgot. But of course, that's not what she said in response. She claimed she was the one owed an apology. How dare you? How dare you reveal to the world the perfidy, hypocrisy, and double dealing of Nancy Pelosi? How dare you? I will bet that in that room, when this story came out, that one of the things that was heard was, who does she think she is? I guarantee that was uttered. You see, this pandemic has exposed, with its masks, the ugly faces of our would-be rulers. Because Nancy Pelosi thinks, and has always thought, that she is above the law. That is how Nancy Pelosi managed to get her fortune together from a lifetime of, quote, public service, unquote. That is how Joe Biden got his. That is how Bernie Sanders, the socialist, got his. Because you see, all that is necessary is for you to say one thing and do another at the right time. And that is what these people are master of. They are not geniuses. They're not very smart. They're mainly below average intelligence. And yet somehow these people have managed to enslave a country. It was the freest country on earth for most of its 244 years. And they did it far more successfully than those communists they admire were able to pull off, because there was not so much as a shot fired. All that was necessary was to play a little game of pretend regarding a cold. And that was sufficient to persuade Americans to give up their freedoms. Now, originally it was just for 2 weeks. And then it was just going to be a month. And then it was just going to be till the 4th of July. And then just for the rest of the summer. But we all know, for we've seen their example, have we not? That it will never end. What do you think the phrase, the new normal, means? Does the new normal imply an end? Does it imply an emergency coming to a natural conclusion? This explains, by the way, why restrictions are increasing as the disease ebbs. See, that makes no logical sense otherwise, except in the calculus of power. And that's the only math that Nancy Pelosi and her ilk are capable of doing. What does it say about their values? Well, clearly the only value they have is power. The money comes from having the power. They will do anything to maintain that power, including falsely accusing average citizens, small business owners who did them favors, of having set them up, of being a traitor. or even worse, among themselves, of being a social climber. The one thing one must not be if you don't have the appropriate pedigree. What does the small business owner value? Well, that becomes apparent in the article. Her ungrateful employee aside, she allowed her stylists to come in and do some work on the down low so that they could make a little money. That meant that she, as the business owner, was taking all the risk because it's her salon. And yet she was willing to do this in order to help out her employees while she's trying to survive herself. How many people can do without 6 months' worth of their income? No notice. She's had to make do. I doubt that the state of California, when they demand their taxes, will be so forgiving as she was of her employees needing to make a little money and do so by flouting the bogus pandemic law. Which in California, as Gavin Newsom has shown, by shutting off the water to businesses who tried to stay in business, can have quite serious consequences. Or in New York, where Cuomo, the killer of the elderly, Cuomo, whose bright idea was to take infected COVID patients and put them into nursing homes with uninfected elderly patients who could not get out, Cuomo decided to pull the licenses of a variety of businesses who tried to survive. And let me tell you something, it is no easy thing in New York to get a license because there are so many corrupt Democrats that you have to grease the palms of that it's quite an expensive proposition. So pulling their license is a very serious consequence, probably lethal to their business in this environment. Over 60% of New York City restaurants are expected to close by year end. Over 60%. This is a city that probably has more restaurants per capita than any other city in the world. But that's okay, because in the words of Nancy Antoinette, let them eat ice cream.